show up, BJ? Can you elaborate?
He showed up every day. There was no days off. That's it. It's simple. Like we've gotten so complicated now. We want to analyze everything. No, he showed up every day. Every day at 10 a.m. He was there.
And when you say he's there, he ain't sitting on the sideline. He
Hey, man, he played 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes the night before. He showed up. Every day he showed up. Every game he showed up. Every drill he showed up. That's it. That's what I saw.
How did that
That's
make
what I
you?
said.
Did you feel that that made your game better or sharper? Because you
Sure, I
came.
didn't know. Sure, I didn't know any other way. Sure, I didn't grow up. This wasn't like my third or fourth team, and I could compare. I didn't know the NBA. I did. All I knew was what I knew coming from as a young kid from Detroit. You played hard and you didn't stop. All I knew was it was nothing that was going to make me quit. I just knew that. I just knew that. That's all I knew, Drew. I didn't know. Like I can. It's easy for me to start telling you things. Sure, I didn't know any other thing. That's the only team I played on. I was about 20 something years old. I didn't know that guys weren't practicing. Like I'd never been around a guy who didn't practice. I'd never been around a guy who didn't play his hardest. Like that wasn't allowed in our environment.
So, if you had to define greatness from that standpoint, how would you define it in that experience? Winning three championships, because you guys won three championships, and BJ, you guys are kind of so celebrated because I think that you guys were in that era of the '90s, and it was like so much of a renaissance. Like everywhere you went, you guys were like
Yeah.
Eagles, man. Y'all was rock stars and stuff, but y'all showed up to the run, like you said, every single night. And
What was it like? People love to say, things are great or whatever. Well, being a parent is probably been my one of my greatest achievements because I learned from them. I learned watching young people. We tend to always acknowledge the person who wins and the person who ascends to a championship level. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. It's professional sports. You're selling. That's the marketing of the sport. I get it. I get all of that. I get the business. What makes you great is do you have the courage to do your best? That's greatness. Do you have the courage to do your best? And then when you meet someone who's better than you, do you have the courage to keep playing and keep doing your best? Or do you find an excuse to not do your best?
so, do you think that it's fair that again, like you mentioned, it's something? And I had my buddy on, a great friend of mine, David Kane, college basketball player, New York City legend, and he was just talking about he thinks that it's unfair that championships define a person's greatness when you have to be lucky and kind of in a situation theoretically right
Well,
place.
if you
And it's
don't
not
understand, so
fair.
people say you have to be lucky. Okay, it's really hard to tell because you want to be inspirational to people. Why do you play sports? Right? Play because you enjoy it. Play it to have fun. Play it. Once you start having fun, then you learn to respect the game. Respecting the games mean no matter what's happening on the floor, you're down 20, you're up 20, you win in the championship, you're the worst team in the league. You play hard. Okay? All right. There's levels to this. First, do you enjoy it? I tell my kids, whatever they're playing, have fun. And then only thing I'm asking you to do is give me the best effort you can give me. I never talk about winning. I got three kids. I never tell them to go win. I never tell them you got to do it. Just are you having fun? Are you? If you're not having fun, you're not going to do
But do you think
it.
do you think greatness it should be defined by wins and championships and stuff?
Greatness is defined because people don't understand what it is. See, this is the first time that we're being influenced by people who don't truly understand what competition is really all about. This is the first in the modern era where most of the people who are making these statements don't truly understand what competition is really all about. Okay. All of my greatest achievements have been defined when I lost. That's a fact. Who I am was always defined when I lost. Why? Because that's character.
Well, I do disagree with that, BJ. When
Okay, you could disagree.
like that,
You
when
you you.
you're Lakers,
My job is not to convince people what it is I understand about sports. That's not my job. That's your job. If that's what you disagree, that's what you. I'm okay with that. I know what works. How do I know what works? Because I know I didn't seen it. I happen to have seen, and when you come out of the battle, everyone is saying the same thing, and I get it. I get it. I'm not mad at it. However, my career has always been defined by when I lost key games and key situations. Why? Because my greatest teacher is when I lost. That's when you find out about yourself. If you want to know who you really are, let me see you when you lose. Because losing is the only tool that will allow you to respect winning.
mm. Can you
It's,
say
it's
that
the losing is the only tool that will allow you to respect winning. So how you gonna win if you ain't never lost? You won't respect it. You don't understand it. You don't understand why you in the gym if you haven't lost. You don't understand what it means to execute in the last 2 minutes of a game if you haven't lost. You won't understand the importance of being on a team if you haven't lost. Something has to define you to where you say, I value this so much, I'm willing to live a lifestyle that's different than most. The only thing that's going to allow you to do that is to lose. You got to feel it. You gotta cry. This game is gonna take something from you to where you are so passionate about it that you gotta understand, man, I don't want to experience that level of pain ever again. It wasn't until I lost in the NBA that I realized why I was obsessed with winning. And everybody can talk about the winning, but no one wants to know, why do you feel so driven to win? It's because I know the pain of losing. I know what that feels like. That's why I can sit here and say, okay, people can celebrate the win. That's fun. That's the fun part of the business. Hey, we got champagne. Yay, we the champion. Yay, I got the ring. Yay. It's like the hero. The hero gets the girl in the end. But the truth of it is, I've been in the locker room where it really hurts. And I know what that feels like. I know what that feels like. And when you know what that feels like, okay, you know me. We speak, if not every day, every other day. I'm going to get in the gym every day. Why? Because I don't want to experience the pain of not doing my best. I can deal with losing, but what I can't deal with is not doing my best and being prepared for the moment. So I work out to this day. I'm 56 years old every day for one reason. This is a lifestyle for me. Whether I'm getting paid to play in the NBA or whether I'm not, I am who I am because this game has taught me, if anything I do in life, I got to work at it. And if you don't understand that, you won't do. You don't have to work out today, BJ. You can do it tomorrow. You this. You no. You don't understand. That's why you don't do it. I'm not judging. I'm just saying anyone who's achieved any level of success, meaning you have the courage to do your best. You got to be prepared for that, and you got to prepare your mind, your body, your spirit for that. So I do that every day as a reminder of, man, this is hard. Everybody sees the celebration. That's the easy part. You see Steph Curry, but do you really want to do what that man has done to get to that point, to be able to shoot that ball like that? That's my question. And the answer is no. Yeah, I want to be able to shoot. Yeah, man, he got the green light. That's why he's good. If the coach gave me the green light, no, 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 no. That man has missed so many shots that he's now mastered the art. So I respect that. I respect what that means. When you see people lose, that's when you see them. Like watching the Denver Nuggets last year. When I saw Jokic lose, I think the year before, that's when I kind of realized, I was like, It's just a matter of when he gonna get one because of the way he lost. It's the way he lost. When the Pistons was beating the Bulls in Game 7 year after year, we had to make a choice. Are we going to say we can't beat them, or are we going to do something to get over this hump? Everyone who's won has had moments where they've lost, and the loss is the most important lesson. That's your lesson. You got to learn it. You gotta. It's got to hurt you. I think it was Pat Riley who said it best. There's winning, and then there's misery. There's nothing else in between. And if you're not miserable when you lose, there's nothing else. If you just like, oh well, we got another one tomorrow night. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. But you won't win that final game of the season with that, and that's fine. But some of them, everything they do matters. I don't care what they're doing. Table tennis, cards on the bus. Who uniform comes out first? They will not tolerate losing at any level. Some of them. Some of these people are that competitive. And when you see that person, you better be prepared for that person because that person is relentless and they won't ever give up. So that's the lesson that you learn. And hopefully, you don't learn it you learn it while you still have an opportunity to do something about it. And this is hard up here.
Do you see any players? BJ Armstrong joining me heavy in the paint. Do you see any players in the current NBA that exemplify that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, these young players, I admire them because they have so many distractions. So there are a lot of players, okay, but the distractions to stay focused. Like there's a young player right now, Anthony Edwards, for instance. He's a fascinating player to me. And the reason being is because, we live in an era now where isolation basketball is at a premium, right? You got your best player. What's the first thing you do now? You give him the ball, he isolates, and he either gets to the basket, shoots, step back, or whatever it is they do. But here's a player now that he's a phenomenal offensive talent, but he wants to guard the other team's best offensive player. Okay. And he's not just putting up numbers. If they don't have the best record, they have the first. Yeah, they're first in the Western Conference right now. Now, this young man now is playing impactful basketball, not only as an offensive player, but he's taking on a responsibility on the other end. And when you start seeing people do things like that, okay, in this era where we know it's very difficult to play defense because the offense has a significant advantage. In that era, you could hand check and you could do things. There's a different level of physicality you could play with. Now, unquestionably, the offensive player is more physical than the defensive player. Okay? Here's a young man now that you're saying he's competing on every night and every possession. And I have been amazed just to watch his growth because it's like, where did he come from? I saw him in college as a young player, right? If I remember correctly, they weren't like they weren't a good team in Georgia. It wasn't like a team. He was the number one pick, but it wasn't like he carried that team. They made a run, da 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 da. But you're seeing the growth and maturity of this young man grow right in front of us. And now to the point where, in my book, he's a top 5 player. And I don't care who you put the other 4 players. He's a top 5 player now in the NBA. The way he performs. Another player would be Shea Alexander. This kid now is a first-team All-NBA player. Okay? You're looking at players like Giannis. So this way of thinking is generational. I don't care what era you come in, it's there. It's just a matter of emphasizing it to where you have a league full of players that, because that level of competition is what brings the buoyancy up to where everyone has to respond and play in that type of environment. And that's what makes the NBA great, because those players, the Anthony Edwards and the Giannis's and the Shea Alexanders, they're just a few. You can argue, the
Jokic.
Jimmy Butler. You can argue Jokic. You can argue there's a lot of these players. So what you're seeing is, but the difference is it's spread out now. Okay, you don't see as many because there's 30 teams in the NBA. There's so much to watch now. There's so many players, and but there are players in this league that could play in any era. I don't care I'm not big on who's the GOAT and who's the greatest and who's the other, because you got different eras. They didn't play against each other. You got different rules. You got travel. You have different circumstances. The way the game is played. There's a lot of things. Preparation for the game. Your sneakers and the facilities. There's a lot that goes into this. However, the mentality that's needed to be great, that just transcends. I don't care what era you in, because if you gave Larry Bird and them the same training and the same stuff that they have today, and they played this game, you can't tell me that guy wouldn't be just, he was making threes when we didn't even really know what it was.
Do you think? Do you think? I don't mean to cut you off. Do you think he gets overlooked as we continue
Overlooked in what?
in regards to like today's NBA fan? I often say on my show on Sirius XM NBA Radio that again, it really bothers me that a lot of the great players of yesteryear, sometimes as we continue on, people forget about them. So it's this belief that like when you hear about Larry Bird, he's not mentioned in that category of top five, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just
Well, I would say this. When it comes to this game, I really take the fan out of it. Okay, and it's important for me to take the fan, because what I thought was good, I didn't know until I got there and I saw it for myself. You can't see on my wall here. I have players who, regardless, ones I've done, I say, okay, I want to the players that I like, not a fan of, right? You know what I mean? Like players who, like, you understand there's a mindset that's needed to play this game. Okay. And the very first time that I was introduced to this mindset was a conversation with Bill Russell early in my career. And he started talking about winning. And I suddenly realized, okay, he was the first person that made me ask, why do I play? Like, why do I play this game? Like, do I play because I want to play against the best players, or do I play because
the money.
whatever it is you can say? And he said, well, why do you play? And I just paused and I didn't know what to say. And I just started thinking, well, why do I play? And then I realized, after having this conversation with him, why I played is because the only thing that matters is winning. That's it. There's no other reason to play. There's no other reason to play. And when you take that responsibility as a player to say, I play because winning is all that matters, now you don't make an excuse. And that's the beautiful part about playing the game. It's because you realize there's only going to be one player or one team that's going to win.
Yeah. So, BJ, I want to ask you before we get on out of here, when did you fall in love with hip hop? Because you're a hip hop aficionado.
Well,
You
Drew, I
always
grew up, yeah,
where
well,
did you fall in love? Keep it real, BJ.
yeah, well, here's the thing. Like,
Because you got turntables. People can't see. You got turntables behind
uh,
you.
well, here's the thing. Like, I grew up in Detroit, right? I grew up in motor, and besides being the Motor City was cars and automobiles, there was another thing too that we had influence on, and that was the music scene. So music was a big thing in my house. Like my mom and my all my aunts and all of my grandmother, that's what we did, music, right? From it was BB King to Lou Rawls to Stevie Wonder to Marvin Gaye to Diana Ross. So music was a part of our life. Like that's what we did. It was music. It was always music. And as I got older, right, as a young kid in Detroit, they were sampling the music. that that was the fascinating thing with me about the music. You say, okay, why did you love it? It's because there were sounds, right, James Brown, that I recognized in this music, and it was a different version of what I had heard growing up as a really young kid, right? When I say a really young kid, I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. And then suddenly in my teenage years, I heard the same song played a different way. And I thought, oh, so this is the song my grandmother and them were listening to, and my dad and them was listening to. And then I heard it in a different way in my generation. Okay. So when did I fall in love with it? Well, I was introduced to James Brown at a very young age. Like that's probably my dad's favorite artist. To have that music come back again, the Funky Drummer and all of those people was probably one of the great things. And to hear my dad and them say, "Oh, I remember that song," and for us to argue that no, this is the original song, and then for them to say, "No, here's the record," and we would go downstairs and they would put on the record, and I was like, "Well, how did they do that?" That's when I began to really understand the music, the business, and what it was. And I owe that to my family because my family always they loved music. Like to this day, my mom saved all of her records, right? My mom was the one who introduced me to the Beatles. My mom introduced me to all of these people. So the music was always a part of my life. My era, which has just happened to be this new thing that came around, which we call hip hop. But truly, growing up in Detroit with Motown, Berry Gordy, and all of these people here, right there in my backyard, was probably and see the impact that music had on people. Right when the Jackson Five and all those people were right there. Okay, and to have that experience, like I can't recall where music wasn't a part of my life. Not a part of like me just listening, wasn't a part of my life. So to grow up with hip hop as a teenager was one of the highs of my life. Just to know that, when I see Chuck D and I see these guys, Kane, and I'm able to talk to these guys now that I'm older, and I used to see those guys at the games and they would come watch our games. Like that's one of the highlights for me is to see the evolution of this, but to know where it came from too.
Let me ask you a question. You said you don't believe in the whole thing of goats and all this stuff. Give me your top five MCs. You said who's sitting at? Matter of fact, don't give me your five. Who's
Yeah.
sitting at your table, BJ?
Well,
At your table, the big boy
listen,
table.
because
Real.
here's the thing.
Don't BJ. Don't give me that
Here's the thing.
political
You
answer.
asked me a question. Can I answer the
I'm
question
asking a
how I
question.
want to
I
answer the
know. Come
question?
on, BJ. Don't give me that
Yeah.
political answer.
Yeah, okay, political, however you want to call it. When you start saying top five,
No
okay.
top five. Who's sitting at your table?
When people start saying top five, okay, it's an impossible question to answer. And
So
why?
give me your top five.
Why is
Don't
it
give me top
impossible?
five. Give me who's
No,
at your
I'm
table.
just saying how I think about it. Now you think about how you
Who's
want to think
at
about
your
it.
table? I just want
My,
to know who's at your table.
my top five, my
No,
top
no, no. I
five.
don't want top five. Who's at your table? Who's sitting at the big boy table at your house? Who's sitting at that big boy table?
When you start saying an MC, when you start saying an MC, right? You're looking at a skill set and it's a truly it's an art. It's an art form, right? I can't be leaving off people because the beautiful thing about this art form now is it's a global thing. It's a global thing. It's not like a it used to be a New York thing. And then I remember as a kid, I was like, oh man, like what them dudes in New York talking about? And then the dudes from LA started. And then the dudes from the South start. And then before you knew it, there was a young man named Jay Dilla. Okay. So this game is a truly global game. It's a global game. Now you got people from all around the world now. And we have to embrace this. And that's
Who's
the
at
hard
the
part.
table, BJ?
Okay, I'm telling you.
I want
Okay.
to know you because you giving me that politician answer.
No, this ain't a
Give me who's at the
politician.
table.
No, it's not a politician answer. Okay. Now, there's a certain style that I prefer, that I identify with. Okay. This is now, if you saying who's sitting at the table, it's not because I don't recognize your skill set and what you bring because every MC must bring their authenticity to the music. I didn't grow up in the South,
Okay.
but that don't mean that Andre 3000 and Big Boy shouldn't be sitting at the table.
Okay. They
Okay.
just might not be at your table. And no
No, 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 no,
disrespect.
no, 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 no. And the reason I'm just saying, or whether it's Killer Mike or whoever from down there in the South, or T.I., whomever, I didn't grow up that way. However, I respect the authenticity of the music. So all of these guys will be at the table. But there's a certain style that I prefer that I grew up with in Detroit because of the music that was influenced by me. I grew up with like Motown and I grew up with a certain music. There's a certain vibration that I so okay. So the reason I'm saying that is because all these MCs from all around, right? If you have in my estimation, if you say like who's your top five, and if someone don't say people like Scarface, I'm just using if people don't say like Ice Cube, if people don't say Razzcazz, if people don't say you
MF.
know you can use MF Doom, if you don't acknowledge these amazing, incredible lyricists, then okay, well, we probably shouldn't be having a discussion because these MCs are incredible. They're not good, they're incredible
And how do
at
you
what
spell
they
the
do.
MC?
You know how to spell it, EMCE, capital EMCEE. Okay. Now, but there's a style that I prefer. Okay. Now here is the style that I prefer. I prefer, okay, them MCs that just stay in the pocket. Okay, that's what I prefer. And why do I prefer that? Because those guys I grew up with, they connected with how I grew up. Okay. So for instance, when I listen to Rakim to this day, it's hard for me to believe that there can be someone that can articulate themselves better than this guy with his wordplay, his the way he puts these songs together, and his subject matter, the beats he chose, the things he said, and how it's like, like how do you come up? I put 7 MCs in a line. Like, how do you come up with stuff like this? Where I don't care where you from, you have to acknowledge that this man's wordplay and his pen game is just like wow. And you can see his influence in the business. Okay. When you see Kane,
Big Daddy Kane.
when you see his wordplay and his pen game and how fast and how he was doing, you see his influence in the game. When you see KRS One, when you see the longevity that this man has had in the business, this isn't about who is like the best. It's just like you're saying, what's your contribution to the game? To the game. Like I'm looking at the game because the game now is a global game. It's a global game. So when I look at KRS-One, I'm saying, okay, that's one of the pillars. Okay. And then because of where I grew up and how I grew up, if you just want to say like who's one of my favorites, like just one of my favorites, that's G-Rap.
Cool G Rap, huh?
Because of his contribution to the game and to the genre and giving young people a vision of something that we saw, and all of a sudden you heard him say it on a song. He was like, oh, okay. So those, and but then now if you say like who's some of my favorites, okay, like one of my favorites is like Pharoah Munch. Growing up in Detroit, I love Eminem. I love Royce the 5'9". Okay. But then I love, like I mentioned them earlier, people like Razkaz. I prefer the underground MC. Okay. I prefer like Jay Dilla, Madlib. I prefer those guys. Why? Because they,
The producers, if you will. Some of these
yeah,
producers.
like for instance, Pete Rock.
His
Like,
unbelievable. His con
yeah. Like I
unbelievable.
just like, I just prefer that. MF Doom is MF Doom. I have a mask right there, and my kids, they were older when they say, "Why you got this mask? Like, is that what you wearing for Halloween?" I was like, "No, this is rapper." Now it's my kids' favorite, one of their favorite rappers, because I just prefer that type of music. So when you say who's the best, how can I leave? I can't leave Scarface off the list. I can't leave him off the list. I can't leave an Ice Cube off the list. I can't leave these guys off the list. And then, then you got the Slick Ricks, then you got the Chuck D. You can't leave these people off the list. Snoop,
Escobar season.
you can't leave these people off the list. And there's so many, you know what I mean, that you can just go on and on and on. So, Redman, then you go to the Wu, Ghost, Buster. You cannot leave these people.
Raekwon.
Ray, Jada. I mean, you come on, DMX. So when y'all start talking about, we ain't even talking about Nas, Jay.
Cannabis.
Oh, now see, now you're talking about lyricists. You got Pun. You got all of these guys that you're saying. So I'm just saying this. I respect the game, and I know I've left a lot of people off. I'm just going off the top. You asked me a question.
Cool
I
Mo
just
D.
respect the. See,
Melly Mel.
LL, yeah, Melly. So you just go on
Grandmaster Caz.
class. You can just, how you gonna not talk about Cass and you talking about being in it? You see what I'm saying? Like you got to acknowledge this. Everyone, they put their life into this. So I don't want to disrespect it by limiting it to a 5. However, I do want to say this, man.